The gunshot echoes across Crimson Creek like thunder before a storm. Thomas Montgomery's body hits the dusty saloon floor, blood pooling beneath his vest, his final breath carrying secrets that Jake Bloodhawk Morrison needs to hear. But the old man's lips seal forever, taking with them the location of 50,000 stolen dollars, money that belongs to the deadliest outlaw gang in Colorado territory. Morrison's cold gray eyes scan the empty room, his patience wearing thin as razor wire. The money's gone. Montgomery's daughter has vanished into the wind. And somewhere out there, Rose Montgomery carries the weight of her father's sins, running toward a fate she cannot escape. 6 months later, in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains, another kind of reckoning awaits. At the Iron Horse Ranch, Magnus Blackwood paces his study like a caged wolf, cigar smoke curling around a decision that will bind two strangers in marriage and thrust them into a deadly game where love might be the only salvation. The frontier has a way of testing a man's soul. Sometimes it breaks him. Sometimes it forges him into something stronger. Stay with us to discover which fate awaits Ethan Blackwood when his world collides with a woman who carries danger in her blood. The Colorado sun beats down merciless on the Iron Horse Ranch, where cattle stretch to the horizon like a brown sea. Ethan Blackwood rides through the gates, dust coating his weathered leather chaps, his cavalry hat tilted low against the glare. 3 months of driving cattle to market has left him lean, hard, and ready for nothing more than a hot bath and his own bed. But Magnus Blackwood has other plans for his son. "You'll marry Rose Montgomery this Saturday." The words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. In the dim study, surrounded by the trophies of a cattle empire, his father's voice carries the weight of iron. "Her family's land borders ours to the south. Combined, we'll control the entire valley." Ethan's hands clench, knuckles white. Marriage isn't a business transaction, Pa. Everything's business, son. Especially marriage. Magnus leans back in his leather chair, eyes cold as winter. The Montgomery girl needs a home. We need her land. Simple arithmetic. But nothing about Rose Montgomery proves simple. She arrives the next morning like a summer storm, sudden, powerful, impossible to ignore. Ethan watches from the corral as she steps down from the stagecoach, her traveling dress hugging curves that make his mouth go dry. Auburn hair catches the morning light, and when she turns, her green eyes hold a fire that could burn a man alive. "Mrs. Montgomery," he says, tipping his hat, trying to keep his voice steady. "Miss," she corrects, her voice carrying a subtle challenge. For 2 more days. There's something in her tone, a sadness wrapped in steel, that makes him want to know her story. But her walls are higher than his father's, and twice as dangerous to climb. The chapel ceremony passes in a blur of vows and witnesses, but Ethan can't forget the moment he lifted Rose's veil. Her beauty isn't the soft, delicate kind men write poems about. It's fierce, untamed, like wildfire in human form. When she says "I do," her voice doesn't waver, but he catches the tremble in her hands. Now, in the ranch house, where 3 generations of Blackwood men have slept, they stand in the hallway between their separate rooms like strangers on a battlefield. Ethan. His name on her lips sounds different than when others say it. Softer, more intimate. "I need to tell you something." In the lamplight, her traveling dress has given way to a white nightgown that flows like water over her figure. The neckline dips just enough to reveal the curve of her collarbone, and Ethan forces himself to meet her eyes instead of letting his gaze wander lower. "My father left debts," she says, her hands twisting together. "Bad men are looking for money they think I have. I didn't want to bring danger to your family, but I had nowhere else to go." The confession hangs between them like smoke. Ethan steps closer, close enough to catch the faint scent of lavender in her hair, to see the pulse beating quick in her throat. "How bad?" he asks, the kind of bad that ends with graves. Her honesty cuts through him. Here's a woman who could have lied, could have played the helpless victim, but instead she meets his eyes and tells him the truth that could destroy them both. "Then we face it together," he says, and means it. That night, they don't share a bed, but they share something more dangerous: trust. The days that follow test them both. Rose moves through the ranch like she belongs there, her sleeves rolled up, working alongside the hands. She's not afraid of dirt or sweat, and when she helps birth a difficult calf, her hands sure and gentle on the struggling animal. Ethan sees past her beauty to the strength beneath. "You ever shoot a gun?" he asks one evening as they walk toward the barn. She shakes her head, auburn hair catching the sunset. "My father said ladies shouldn't handle weapons." "Your father was wrong about a lot of things." Ethan draws his Colt .45, the weight familiar in his hand. "A woman out here needs to protect herself." He stands behind her, his chest against her back as he positions her arms. The warmth of her body seeps through her cotton blouse, and when she leans back against him, Ethan's concentration nearly shatters. "Feel the weight," he murmurs, his breath stirring the hair at her ear. "Don't fight the recoil. Let it happen." She fires, the shot going wide, but her second attempt finds the target. When she turns in his arms, her face flushed with success, they're close enough to kiss. Her lips part slightly, her eyes searching his face, and Ethan feels the world narrow to just this moment, this woman, this need building between them. But a shout from the ridge breaks the spell. Smoke rises black against the sunset sky. The south pasture is burning. They ride hard through the night, fighting flames that threaten to consume everything Magnus Blackwood has built. Rose works beside him, her nightgown discarded for men's clothes that outline every curve as she hauls water buckets. Soot streaks her face, and her hair clings damp to her neck. But she doesn't falter. When dawn finally comes and the fire dies, they stand exhausted among the ashes. Rose's shirt is torn, revealing the smooth skin of her shoulder, and Ethan can't resist tracing the smudge of soot there with his thumb. "You didn't have to stay," he says, his voice rough from smoke and something deeper. "Yes, I did." She catches his hand, pressing it against her cheek. "This is my home now, too." The kiss happens like sunrise, inevitable, beautiful, transforming everything. Her lips are soft against his, tasting of ash and promise, and when she melts into his arms, Ethan knows he's lost to her completely. But peace doesn't last long in Colorado territory. 3 days after the fire, they find young Billy Carruthers at the creek, his body riddled with bullets, a note pinned to his chest. "Tell Rose Montgomery I'm coming for what's mine. J.M." In Magnus's study, the truth spills out like blood from a wound. Rose sits straight-backed in the leather chair, her hands steady despite the terror in her eyes. "My father didn't just owe money," she says. "He stole it. $50,000 from Jake Morrison's gang. The night he died, he told me where he hid it, in a cave system near Devil's Canyon. Morrison's been hunting me for 6 months." Magnus slams his fist on the desk. "You brought this devil to my doorstep." "Pa." Ethan's voice cuts sharp as a blade. "That's enough. She's poison, son. Can't you see? She'll destroy everything we've built." Rose rises, her spine steel straight. "He's right. I should go." But Ethan catches her arm, feeling the tremor beneath her courage. "You're not going anywhere. You're my wife." The confrontation that follows between father and son erupts like a dam bursting. 28 years of obedience shatter against Ethan's newfound resolve to protect the woman he loves. "Choose," Magnus growls. "Her or this family." "I choose both." Ethan's voice is quiet, final. "And if you can't accept that, then maybe it's time I built something of my own." That night, Rose comes to his room. In the moonlight, streaming through the window, her nightgown seems made of silver shadows. "I won't let you lose your family for me," she whispers. "You are my family now," he says, pulling her into his arms. They make love for the first time, with desperate tenderness, her body soft and yielding beneath his calloused hands. She gasps his name as he trails kisses down her throat, his mouth finding the sensitive spot where her pulse beats wild. When he enters her, slow and careful, she arches against him with a cry that's part pain, part pleasure, part relief at finally being truly known. Afterward, they lie tangled in sheets damp with sweat, her head on his chest, his fingers stroking her hair. "Whatever comes," he murmurs against her temple, "we face it together." But dawn brings fresh horror. Rose is gone, her horse missing from the stable, only a note left behind. "I won't let my sins destroy your family. Find happiness, my love. R." Morrison's men catch her before she's ridden 10 miles. Ethan finds the spot where they took her. Horse tracks, a piece of her torn dress caught on barbed wire, and his world tilts on its axis. "We go after her," he tells Magnus, loading his Winchester. His father studies him for a long moment, seeing perhaps for the first time the man his son has become. "Maria," he calls to their housekeeper, "get my guns." Maria Santos emerges from the kitchen, but she's not the matronly woman Ethan has known all his life. The rifle in her hands is clean and well-oiled, her movements precise as a gunslinger's. "I wondered when my past would catch up," she says. "I rode with the Velasco gang for 3 years before I came here. Figured it was time to dust off some old skills." The revelation rocks Ethan, but there's no time for questions. Morrison's trail leads toward Devil's Canyon, where red rock walls rise like cathedral spires, and the wind carries the scent of death. They find the outlaw camp as sunset bleeds across the sky. Rose kneels in the dirt, her hands bound, her dress torn, but her eyes still burn with defiance. Morrison circles her like a predator, his pale hair gleaming in the firelight. "Pretty little thing," he drawls. "Shame about what's going to happen to her if I don't get my money." Through his rifle scope, Ethan can see every detail. The bruise on Rose's cheek, the way she holds herself despite her fear, the love that flashes in her eyes when she spots him in the rocks above. The battle erupts like hellfire. Bullets whine off canyon walls as Ethan and his allies pour down death from above. Maria moves like a ghost, her shots finding targets with deadly precision. Magnus fights with the fury of a man defending his family, his rifle barking steadily. But Morrison is cunning. He uses Rose as a shield, his gun pressed to her temple. "Drop your weapons, Blackwood, or I paint these rocks with her brains." The standoff stretches taut as a violin string. Then Rose does something unexpected. She throws herself sideways, rolling away from Morrison's grip, the moves Ethan taught her saving her life as his bullet takes Morrison in the shoulder. The outlaw leader staggers, his gun spinning away, and Ethan leaps down from the rocks. They crash together in the dust, fists flying, each man fighting for different reasons, Morrison for greed, Ethan for love. The fight is brutal, vicious. Morrison has the edge of desperation, but Ethan has something stronger. When Rose cries out his name, when he sees the fear in her eyes, he finds reserves of strength he didn't know he possessed. His final punch drops Morrison unconscious to the canyon floor. The aftermath comes swift and hard. Morrison's surviving gang members surrender, rather than face Maria's deadly aim. The outlaw leader himself awakens to find his hands bound with the same rope that held Rose captive. "The money," Ethan demands. Rose leads them to a hidden cave where canvas bags hold more gold and silver than Ethan has ever seen. "Blood money," she says quietly. "Every coin stained with someone's pain." They turn it over to the territorial marshal when he arrives, keeping only what was stolen from the banks Morrison robbed. The rest goes to the families of his victims. A small justice, but justice nonetheless. Magnus finds Ethan by the corral 3 days later, watching Rose work with a young colt. She's patient with the animal, her voice gentle, her movements sure. "She's good for you," the older man says finally. "Yes, she is. I was wrong to try to control your life. Your mother, God rest her soul, she'd have set me straight long ago." Magnus grips his son's shoulder. "I'm proud of the man you've become. Proud of the woman you chose." The forgiveness between father and son doesn't come in words, but in understanding, in the gradual rebuilding of trust that had been cracked but not broken. 1 year later, Rose stands on the porch of their own ranch house, built on land Magnus deeded to them as a wedding gift. Her hand rests on the curve of her belly, where new life grows, and she watches Ethan work with the horses in the corral below. He's changed in the year since Devil's Canyon. The boy who obeyed without question is gone, replaced by a man who makes his own choices, who builds rather than inherits. When he catches sight of her, his face lights up with the same fire that first drew her to him. "What are you thinking about?" he asks, climbing the porch steps to wrap his arms around her from behind. "How different everything could have been," she murmurs, leaning back against his chest. "If I hadn't run, if you hadn't followed, if your father hadn't forgiven. But we did, and he did." His hands rest over hers on her belly. "And now we get to build something new." In the distance, the sun sets over the Colorado Territory, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The frontier still holds dangers, it always will, but together they're strong enough to face whatever comes. Rose turns in his arms, her lips finding his in a kiss that tastes of home, of love, of second chances taken and cherished. And in that moment, under the vast western sky, they know they've found something worth more than gold, more precious than land. They've found each other. Hearts forged in fire burn brightest. Love tested by danger proves strongest. Share your thoughts below. Tell us where you're listening from. And subscribe for more tales of courage, redemption, and love that conquers all odds.